Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's premier high school sports show, Prep Central, with your host, James Yodice. This show is presented by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. I am James Yodice. I am the high school sports editor at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome back to our podcast, which we are going to rebrand for the immediate future as Prep Central. We're looking to find a name starting next school year that's going to work as sort of an umbrella name for all sports. We had a football title, we had a basketball title, and we're going to use Prep Central for the rest of the school year as we cover any number of things, not just spring sports related, but any and all topics. So by the time we rejoin you in the fall, after I finish my last podcast in May, and we return for football season, we may have a different name. But for now, Prep Central is what we're going to go with for the rest of this school year. We are what's April 3rd now. So we're only into the last 6.5 weeks, if you can believe it, of the high school athletic calendar. We have all of April, and then I think we finish up on around May 18th. So we've just got 6 or 7 weeks left to go. So we'll be running into the finish line here pretty soon in all the sports. So we're going to talk about a few things today, and we're going to start, as we have with other podcasts during basketball season, with Bella Hines from El Dorado. Many of you probably already know by now, the ones that are watching this, know that Bella made her verbal commitment to LSU earlier this week. Now, she, of course, is the state's leading scorer. She was not the Gatorade Player of the Year this year, but, she, of course, moves the needle more than any athlete, maybe in any sport in the state, honestly. Her name is a brand that's recognized regionally and nationally. So what interests me about this story, not that she picked LSU, and we're going to talk about this for a few minutes, but it wasn't so much that she picked LSU, it was just the speed with which she selected LSU. Now, you have to remember, I looked it up, on March 18th, so that was just a couple of weeks ago, she put out a list of her 10 finalists. And, of course, LSU was on that list. I can't remember the whole list. Iowa was on this list. NC State was on this list. Of course, NC State and Iowa are both in the Final Four this week. And there's some other heavyweight programs on this list: Arizona, Baylor, Texas Tech, West Virginia, Kansas State, and so on. A couple others I'm not thinking of the top of my head. But the point was, she put out the list of her top 10, and when I asked her about this a couple of weeks ago, I think the plan was for her to do her club season during the spring and summer, and then settle on a school at the end of her club season, which usually is a little before Labor Day. When I spoke to her, she was getting ready to take her official visit to LSU. So about 3 or 4 days after she and I spoke, she went to Baton Rouge. She went to LSU's first-round NCAA tournament game against Rice. She spent part of several days there in Louisiana. And she and I talked about this yesterday, Tuesday, as she made her decision to commit to LSU. And I asked her, I said, well, obviously your visit to Baton Rouge must have convinced you that there was no need to look any further, that you realized you had found the place that was right for you. And she said 100%. So we talked about LSU. She said when she was a guest at the LSU game against Rice, she had any number of people coming up to her, asking her if she was going to commit to LSU. She's the number 31 ranked recruit on ESPN Women for the class of 2025. She's a 4-star recruit. So she's very well known. And LSU, obviously, the community, the women's basketball community in Baton Rouge, knew she was going to be there and made her feel very welcome and made her feel like family. And that's, in essence, what Bella told me. She said she said it felt very homey. That was her word, homey. As she spent her time there around campus, she said she felt at home with the students, with the campus, with the community, and with the coaches especially. Now, of course, this comes into play because she's going to be going to play for Kim Mulkey, who has been very much in the news of late. Kim Mulkey has won multiple national championships as a coach, both at Baylor and last year at LSU. And she's been in the news recently for the last couple of weeks surrounding a mysterious profile that took a while to come out from the Washington Post that apparently its author had been working on for a couple of years. And so Kim Mulkey has been a bit on the hot seat, unnecessarily, I think. I mean, there was a lot of complaints about a story that hadn't even been read yet. It recently came out I talked to Bella about Coach Mulkey and about this Washington Post story. First of all, I'll say that Bella said this Washington Post story wouldn't have changed her mind about LSU or about Coach Mulkey. But I think the more important thing is I asked Bella specifically about Coach Mulkey. I mean, how many chances do you get to ask somebody who has actually met the woman and spoken to her? I said, what were your impressions of Coach Mulkey? What did you think of her, and what do you think of her? And Bella told me that she had admired her going all the way back to her days at Baylor, and that she'd always dreamed for playing for a coach like Kim Mulkey. And she said, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but Bella, in essence, said that Coach Mulkey was one of the most genuine human beings she had ever met. And that very much impressed her during her visit. And she apparently was just wowed by Coach Mulkey during her visit and her chat while she was in Louisiana. So I thought that was interesting to get the perspective of someone who's actually met the woman being Coach Mulkey, and get a sense of someone who's going to be coming into a program that's going to have a national spotlight. So what we have now is Bella making her decision to go to LSU. She'll sign later in the year, probably November, I think, with LSU. Of course, other schools can continue to recruit her. This is something that people always forget. Other schools can continue to recruit any athlete that makes a verbal commitment. They're allowed to continue to recruit, and then it's up to the individual athlete, boy or girl, to decide how much contact or dialogue they want to have with other schools. But just because she's committed to LSU does not mean that she's signed yet. Of course, this 99.9% of the time, the athlete does sign with the school they committed to. But other schools can continue to go after her and try and pursue her. So we'll see how this plays out. And now that we have Bella Hines making her decision, soon we're going to have to turn our attention to Sydney Benally from Sandia, who is also a junior, like Bella, be a senior next year. Sydney, like Bella, is 5'9", a combo guard. Sydney was the Gatorade Player of the Year, led Sandia to the Class 5A state championship. And Sydney has about 20 offers herself, most of them, if not all of them, from Division I programs. And she is an incredibly highly skilled player. And if it weren't for Bella, we probably would be talking a lot more about Sydney. And I'm certainly planning to get a hold of Sydney very soon, probably when the spring sports season is over, and sit down with her and get an idea about her plans. Because now that Bella has made her choice, I think we'll look to Sydney Benally and see what she does, whether she'll make her decision during the spring, during the summer, or she'll wait until after her club season is over. So congratulations to Bella. I know she's excited to go to LSU. She couldn't have gushed more about her visit and about the program and about the culture, was a word that Bella used several times with me in my interview with her yesterday. So we congratulate Bella on her decision to go to LSU.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities toward success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student. Assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
So we're going to talk a little bit more basketball here. Going to go over the Journal, which is me basically when it comes to high school sports. We announced our all-metro teams for basketball last weekend. I wanted to run down, for those of you who missed it, the players that we named on our first team. The Journal's all-metro teams are extremely exclusive. We only do one first team, one second team. There are no ties, no third teams, no honorable mentions. And we take all classifications when we pick teams. So if there's a really good player from 2A or 3A that deserves to be on the list in whatever sport, they'll make it. So our list is super exclusive to get into, and we now start 2023, 24 teams over the weekend. So I'll go over our first teams real quick, and these names probably won't be much of a surprise on the boys' side. And it was a great starting five. Kenyon Aguino from Volcano Vista, the junior forward, the Gatorade Player of the Year, is on the first team. Jalen Holland from Los Lunas, the most recruited player in the state. He's a junior guard. He's on the first team. Daniel Steverson from Cleveland, a very smooth player. I like him a lot. Daniel is on the first team, senior guard from Cleveland. Latavius Morris, who's one of my favorite athletes. He's a good kid. I like interviewing him. I enjoy watching him play, whether it's football or basketball. He's a junior guard, and I would consider, I think it's fair to say, he's probably the most explosive of the 5 players on this first team. He can really fill it up in a hurry. Jalen Holland can too, but Latavius is such a spark plug, and his speed on the floor is such that he's a nuisance for teams defensively. And, boy, he can really fill it up and get to the rack. A lot of fun to watch. He's a junior. Of course, him, Jalen Holland, Kenyon Aguino, all juniors, so they'll all be back next season. And the 5th member of the team on our All-Metro squad is Elijah Brody, the senior guard from West Mesa, the quarterback for the football team, who's actually signed now to play with the UNM Lobos, and new coach Bronco Mendenhall, who have signed him basically as an athlete. I don't expect Elijah to be playing much quarterback at UNM, but he's so spectacular to watch. The Lobos will find a way, much like the Wysong brothers from Cleveland. They'll find a way, Luke and Evan, they'll find a way to utilize Elijah in some way. So those are our first team boys from this last season. The girls team, 3 of them probably slam dunk choices. You could guess easily. We're talking about Sydney Benally from Sandia, a junior, Bella Hines from El Dorado, a junior. The other 3 are seniors. Volcano Vista forward T.T. Hill, who was fantastic all year, and really throughout her 4-year career. Eva Love, who is going to the Air Force Academy. She plays for La Cueva. And Alyssa Mays from St. Pius, whose numbers are probably modest compared to a couple of other players who did not make the first team. But I felt like what Alyssa brought to the floor for St. Pius, her leadership, her court presence, just being a steadying influence. And on top of which, she helped her team get into the state championship game this last season. So she was my 5th player on the first team. She is a senior as well. So Bella and Sydney, of course, will be back. The other 3 will all be going on to play at the next level. So congratulations to all of them. And something else that I learned this year, which probably has nothing related to do with anything, but the coaches, the basketball coaches in the metro area, almost always, as far as I know, they've always done this, name their own all-metro team. They will do, I think what they do is they name one big school team, they do one 4A team, and then I think they combine 1A through 3A for another team. They did not do that this year. I'm not entirely sure why. I had a couple of coaches explain why they believe that happened, but the coaches did not do an all-metro basketball team this year, so the Journals was really the only all-metro team that was out there. I do believe that efforts are being made to try and rectify this for next year so the coaches can have their own all-metro team, and certainly more players can get honored by the coaches than the Journal will because of our pretty strict regulations in terms of naming kids. Anyway, one of the things that's happened since the last time we all visited, we had all state teams come out as well for basketball. I wanted to run down a couple of the larger schools and their first team choices. Kenyon Aguino, Jalen Holland, Daniel Steverson, who we just talked about, were all on the first team in Class 5A. Cody Vasserstein from Farmington, who is a player a little bit like Latavius Morris, really can fill it up in bunches. A very explosive kid. He's a guard for Farmington. He is on the first team. And Brandon Karras, the senior forward from Oregon Mountain, who admittedly did not have a great state championship game against Volcano Vista, but to be honest, that's not really a debit. He was just really terrific for the Knights all season, actually for the last couple of years. So that is your first team in Class 5A. Class 4A boys was all Albuquerque, which is not surprising because the top 5 seeds in the Class 4A state tournament were all Albuquerque teams. Okay, so in addition to all Metro teams, the New Mexico High School Coaches Association also have released, since the last time we visited, their all-state teams for the basketball season. I'm not going to run over every team from every class. I want to talk about the 5A boys and girls and the 4A boys in particular. The 5A boys first team, 3 names we just talked about, Kenyon Aguino, Daniel Steverson, Jalen Holland, are all on the first team. They were joined there by Cody Vasserstein from Farmington, a guard who is sort of a taller version, I think, of Latavius Morris from Atrisco Heritage. This is a kid that can really fill it up and just had bouts of explosive offense during this season for Farmington. So he had a big year. He made the first team. The fifth member of the first team is Brandon Karras, the senior forward from Oregon Mountain, who was sensational for the Knights all season, really for the last 2 years. He struggled a bit to be a factor in the championship game this year against Volcano Vista, but, Volcano Vista tends to do that to a lot of players. So that's not a debit on Brandon Karras. He was terrific for them all year and a worthy choice on the 5A first team. The 4A boys first team was all Albuquerque, which is not surprising. The top 5 seeds at the state tournament were all from Albuquerque, and there is one player from each of those 5 teams on the Class 4A first team. That is Jesus Licon from Highland, who was on our All-Metro second team. Jason Montoya from St. Pius, Julian Chavez from Valley, Joe Jack from Albuquerque Academy, a player I really like, and Noah Perry from Hope Christian. So that was the 4A boys first team. And real quick, we'll talk about the 5A girls first team. Several of the names we just talked about for the Journal's All-Metro teams, Sydney Benally, Bella Hines, T.T. Hill from Volcano Vista. They were all on the first team. Capiolani Anitilo from Farmington. Boy, she's just a really efficient and smooth basketball player. I wouldn't describe her as dynamic, but she reminds me a little bit of Danielle Steverson. She's just a smooth talent, not flashy, but finds a way to get her shot off. She's very efficient from distance. She can also score from inside, so she's a deserving candidate to be on the first team. And the last person on the first team was Brett Clay from Hobbs. So that is your first team in 5A girls. As we move along, we still have a couple of state tournaments left for the quote-unquote winter sports, even though we're into technically the spring. The state spirit competition is going to be coming up this weekend. The dance competition will be on Friday. The state cheerleading competition will be on Saturday. Both days will be at the pit. Spirit became a sport, over a decade ago now, I think, and it is always one of the best attended state events of any event the NMAA puts on. The crowds there are usually incredibly large and very energetic, usually really great energy in that building. And one other thing I wanted to mention, too, the first ever state powerlifting state championship event is coming up next week at the Rio Rancho Events Center. Now, powerlifting has been sort of an activity for the last couple of years, and then it was fully sanctioned as a sport starting with this year. So this is going to be a new event for me, a new sport. I'm curious to see how it will look. It is for girls and boys, and we've got kids out there already qualifying for this event next week. So that should be an interesting event, and I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of research next week before I go out there about what to expect and how these things work. But I figure it's going to be one of those really high energy events, and just a lot of I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. Energy, I guess, is the best word I can think of as we do the first powerlifting competition. And of course, all the state spring competitions will be coming up in May: golf, tennis, track, baseball, softball, and of course we'll be all over that in the coming weeks. A couple of things I wanted to mention before I get out of here for the day. Last week we had a couple of major tournaments going on. Wanted to shout out the Rio Rancho baseball team, which beat Sandia 2-1 in 9 innings to win the Sal Puentes Memorial Tournament, which had the top 4 ranked teams in the state in Class 5A all entered in this event. Really excellent championship game. And Rio Rancho sort of avenged a loss to Sandia at the Metro Tournament the previous week. And then we also had the Kristen Griego Memorial Softball Tournament, which is hosted by Rio Rancho, but is played down the road from the high school at Eagle Ridge Middle School. Alamogordo beat Cibola 8-0 in the championship game. Alamogordo spent a lot of time up here last week. They played a couple of games against La Cueva. And I mention this only because Centennial, La Cueva, and Alamogordo are ranked 1, 2, and 3 in the latest coaches poll. Alamogordo just beat Centennial yesterday, Tuesday, in a game. Alamogordo split 2 games with La Cueva last week. They won 1 game in extra innings and lost the second game. And I bring this up because almost all of the power in softball exists outside the Albuquerque metro area, which is really the one sport in which Albuquerque pales in comparison, by and large, to the rest of the state. Softball is dominated by teams outside of Albuquerque or outside of Rio Rancho. And La Cueva splitting with Alamogordo was a key development. La Cueva needed to prove itself against a really good team from in-state. And the fact that Alamogordo turned around and beat Centennial this week, that's got to give La Cueva a bit of confidence, actually probably quite a bit of confidence if they start thinking about how things might shape out in May, because Centennial has been generally regarded as the best team out there. And if La Cueva can hold its own with Alamogordo, a team that is comparable to Centennial, then I think the Bears have to like their position right now. They're ranked number 2, and they're legit. This is a team that's got 3 really good pitchers, Hannah Hunt, Lainey Alcaraz, and Lily Montoya. That is a really strong group of pitchers, and you're going to need that at state. Any one of those 3 can pitch against anyone, and I saw that last week. They threw all 3 of those girls against Alamogordo, and all 3 were effective in their own way. So La Cueva's run is when we get into May, when we get into the state tournament. That's something we'll be watching closely, but it was an important development for La Cueva last week to split with Alamogordo, a team that knocked them out of state last year, and a team that generally has been considered just superior to all the Albuquerque teams. So that was something that I thought was really interesting. We're going to get out of here. As I said, we're going to go under this new brand name, Prep Central, for the immediate future. We may carry that into the fall. I don't know when football begins, but I'm going to try and mix it up over the next 6 or 7 weeks. I definitely am going to have some guests who have promised me they will come in and join me, not necessarily spring guests. Gianna Raymer is someone that should be in here within the next couple of weeks. She just came back not too long ago from the Chandler Rotary meet in Arizona, which is a prestigious meet, and performed well. Had a first place and a third place in the 2 distance races there. So Gianna, after her dominant cross-country season, we'll see how she translates that into track. So we're going to be talking a lot about not just the spring sports, but I've got some other plans for some other guests to kind of cross over as much as possible. So stick with me. We're going to have some fun this spring. It'll be a little less straightforward and formal that we had in basketball and football. We're going to bounce around quite a bit and try and have as much fun with this now that we're into the spring sports. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. You can find, as always, our podcast at abqjournal.com. Jeff Grammer's as well. Sean Ryder just did his, our UNM football beat writer, just did his first podcast today. So you can catch all our podcasts there on YouTube as well, other platforms as well. And as always, we encourage you to read, hear, watch. We've got the best group of sports writers and sports media talent in the state, as far as I'm concerned, and by a wide, wide margin. So I hope you'll invest time in all our podcasts and continue to read the Journal, as always. And, of course, I get paid by the Journal, but I'm saying this because I truly believe it. We've got great talent in this building, and we continue to provide great coverage across the board. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Everybody, get into your shorts, and let's enjoy the spring, and I'll see you next week.